By the time Mia heard the footsteps behind her, the night had already taken a turn for the worse. But what sent a true shiver down her spine wasn't the fact that he had returned. It was the fact that he'd waited. And he wasn't just waiting, he was hiding. But let's start from the beginning. Hello and welcome back to Next Story. Today we have a couple stories. The first one is called Around the Corner, and it's about a girl working the graveyard shift at a hotel when someone starts following her. The second story is called The Wrong Turn, and it's about a different woman who takes a ride on a rideshare app that doesn't go as planned. And if you like these type of stories, make sure to like, subscribe, and comment down below what you think of these or what other types of stories you would like to hear. Alright, here's the next story. Mia was 21 years old. She was working graveyard shifts at a mid-sized hotel. This is the kind of job where strange hours like that will get you even stranger people. Officially, she was scheduled to work from 11 at night to about 7 in the morning. When most of the night was really just silent, you could really only hear the night staff working, doing their regular cleanings. This particular night wasn't the same. In fact, it would leave Mia questioning herself how much empathy she could really have for someone and not be in danger. Mia had always prided herself on being kind. She was very empathetic. She was the type of person who listened, but people often told her that that level of empathy could make her a target. But Mia had brushed it off. It's nice to be nice, she thought. That night, like most others, Mia finished up all of her duties around 3 in the morning. Her coworker, a guy named Darren, had just stepped away to take a nap, which means Mia was left alone to tend to the welcoming desk by herself. So she kicked back in one of the oversized chairs near the reception area and just started scrolling through Instagram Reels like anyone would normally do. At this time, the hotel was still and silent. There wasn't really anything out of the ordinary until she heard a shuffle around the bar area. And at first it barely registered. It wasn't uncommon for guests to come around the bar area looking for water or maybe stepping outside to smoke a cigarette. But when Mia happened to look up, she locked eyes with a man standing silently right in front of her counter. This man looked to be about 40. He was tall, about 6 feet, and even though his posture was a little bit relaxed, there was something weird about how still he seemed to be standing. He wasn't moving, he was just standing there looking at Mia. So Mia forced a polite smile, bracing herself for perhaps a complaint. It wasn't unusual for that to happen either, or a request for something that really wasn't that important. "Oh, hi, sorry, I was just on my phone." He mumbled something in a very low voice, and it was really hard to make out. So Mia just stepped closer so she could hear him a little better. "I was wondering, is it okay if I have some water?" His voice was soft, shaky, and he looked a little nervous. And despite him being pretty big, over 6 foot tall, he didn't seem to be aggressive at all either. Mia nodded and just gestured him towards the lounge area. But just as Mia turned to leave and go back to her chair, this man spoke again. Is it okay if I talk to you for a while? My mom's in the hospital. She's dying, and I can't sleep." The words obviously caught Mia off guard. Something about the way he said them, like flat and deliberate, and it made her hesitate. Still, she nodded and reminded herself that empathy was the way. It was a nice thing to do, and he probably just needs someone to talk to. He proceeded to ask her if she smoked. Mia said yes, and when he invited her outside to smoke a cigarette, Mia agreed. Even though she kinda had this weird feeling about this guy, she still decided to go with him. Outside, they were just smoking, leaning against the wall of the hotel. It was late at night, obviously, so there was only one lamp illuminating the place. And this man, who at this point introduced himself as Ben, he started sharing some fragments of his life. How he used to be homeless, and how he had moved with his sister, and that helped him to finally find his footing. And he also mentioned that him and his sister were actually staying at this very same hotel temporarily, but they weren't from the area. Mia was just listening quietly, smoking, and just nodding her head as he spoke. But then his tone started to shift a little bit. He leaned in slightly and asked, "Are there cameras out here? I wouldn't want you getting in trouble." The question struck her as odd. Why would he care about cameras? Why would he even ask that question? And trying to act normal, Mia just shrugged and said, I'm fine, don't worry about it." Ben didn't press any further, but something had changed. His demeanor had grown more intense, even a little more curious. His questions started to get more personal, maybe too personal. It was fairly cold outside, so eventually Mia just said, "I'm gonna I'm gonna go head back in, and it was nice to meet you. But before she could do that, Ben stepped a little closer and he said, give me a hug. I'll warm you up. Mia froze at this point. Her alarm bells were screaming at her. So before quickly turning around and stepping inside, she just said, I'm okay, thanks. But Ben followed. Back in the lobby, he asked if he could sit and chat a little bit longer. Maybe grab a coffee at 3 in the morning. Mia, who was now nervous and knew she was alone, she didn't know how to refuse. So she told herself she'd play it safe and just keep him in view and try to stay as calm as possible. But he didn't stop there. As they sat in the quiet lobby, he just kept asking strange questions. Do you have kids? Do you want kids? Do you have a boyfriend? You'd seem like you make a good mom. Mia lied and she said she had a fiance, but it didn't seem to deter him at all. Fiance, huh? Do you love him? No harm in asking, just curious. Come sit next to me. I don't bite. That last line made Mia snap. She made up an excuse about having to prepare breakfast for the following morning's guests, so she said, hoping that he would take the hint, my manager will be here soon. Right at that moment, Darren, who had been taking a nap in another room, started to walk past the lobby. Ben suddenly stands up and turns to Mia with a weird smile, and he says, tell your mom I was asking for her, as he brings Mia close in and forces a hug on her. And then he just turns and walks to his room. That's when Mia noticed. This forced hug and talking about her mom was an act to keep Darren from thinking anything weird was happening. And even though he had walked away and gone back to his room, Ben wasn't done yet. About 3 hours later, around 5:50 in the morning, Mia was sitting quietly at the front desk again, mentally just counting the seconds for her manager to return when Ben showed up again. And as he was walking by, he just said, I think I'm gonna run to the shops, I'm out of smokes. And Mia didn't respond, she just pretended to ignore him. Can I borrow your pen? So Mia hands him over a pen in silence without saying anything to him, and he walks off. About 5 minutes later, he returns and hands her the pen back. I wrote you a note. He then leans in close and drops a folded piece of cardboard behind her back where no one could see, and then he walks away. Mia waited a little bit for him to be out of distance before she turns around and picks up this piece of cardboard. In this piece of cardboard, there was one line that made Mia's blood turn cold. Written on the cardboard, it said, wear tighter work pants for me next time. Did look good. So Mia stands up and bolts to the staff office and sits in front of the CCTV monitor. And her heart's pounding, but she needed to know where he was. And after looking through the monitor and the screen, she finally spots him, and he's just outside pacing. Then Mia can see Ben come back into the lobby and look around for her, confused. And when he doesn't find her, he just steps right back outside. And at first, he steps away from the view of the camera, so it seems like you can't see him now. But after focusing on the screen and moving the camera a little bit, Mia finds him again. And he was just hiding behind one of the corners of the building, and he seemed to be just waiting for her to come out. So Mia waits in this room until her manager finally shows up, at which point she rushes towards him and tells him what has happened. Her manager tells her you need to just leave immediately, go home, and matter of fact, go out the back door. Don't even go through the front. Mia didn't argue, she just ran to the back and left the building, got in her car, and left. Finally, she gets home, she lays on her couch, and she just tries to relax. Her shaking finally subsides, but then her phone buzzes. Hey, it's Ben. Thanks for the chat. Talk soon. But Mia hadn't given out her number at all. So how did Ben get it? She immediately blocked his phone number and did not reply to the message. And she didn't return to work until she knew for sure that this guy had been barred from the property altogether. And this didn't scare Mia just from going to work. Mia actually started to think that maybe she'll run into him at the grocery store or in the street or just around the corner like he was hiding before. She still doesn't know how far this would have gone if she had returned to work or continued to make conversation with him. But she knows now that having that level of empathy towards somebody can get you hurt sometimes. And even though this guy seemed friendly at first, who knows what his intentions really were. Emma had always felt fairly secure while using a rideshare app in her country. It wasn't like the old days where you'd have to stand on the curb and wave down a cab and just hope that your driver was friendly. No, this was modern, this was global, and she knew that it was designed to protect both the driver and the rider. The system had always felt airtight, until yesterday. She had to travel from one small town to another, and this trip would take her through one of the major cities in the middle. It was nothing unusual, it was just a typical long-hour drive that she had actually taken before. But when she booked this ride, she immediately noticed something was off. The car icon on the app was acting strangely. It wasn't following the route that it should take to go pick her up. And Emma just brushed it off like anybody would, thinking, oh, the app is having issues, it's glitching, I'm sure my driver is on his way to pick me up. After all, GPS errors and technology can have issues. Eventually, after waiting for some time, a gray sedan pulls up next to her. The driver just kind of looks at her and gives her a nod, but no smile or greeting for that matter, and she gets in the car. But what Emma didn't know is that the strangeness was just starting. You see, the driver hadn't started the drive. He had simply driven away without starting it on his app. And Emma noticed this right away, but just figured that maybe he had forgotten to press the start button. Still, something about this driver being so silent and not saying a word made her a little bit uneasy. The first few minutes of the ride were quiet, maybe a little too quiet. In fact, the driver didn't even say a word. There was no casual question like, oh, where are you going? Are you from here? Nothing like that. There was no music either. The only thing Emma could hear was just the rumble of the engine and the tires spinning on the asphalt. Then Emma looks at the screen again, and the route seemed to be unfamiliar compared to what she knew the route should be since she has taken this trip before. And it wasn't just slightly different like it was giving them a detour. It was completely different and completely wrong. The car in fact was heading away from the main city into the outskirts of town. And as she continued to just sit in the back of this car, she noticed that most of the buildings and the houses were going away and it was all turning into trees just lining the road. She just kind of laughed this off in her head, trying to brush it off. And she was quietly thinking, what if this guy just drives out into the suburbs instead of the city? And as if she knew how to do telepathy, that's exactly what happened. When she realized that he was actually doing this, her chest immediately got tight. It wasn't just a wrong turn that this guy had taken. It was the opposite direction of where she needed to go. And the worst part was, this driver still hadn't started the ride on his app. As far as his rideshare app was concerned, Emma wasn't even in the car. And suddenly she realized that no matter how safe these rideshare apps advertise themselves to be, that wasn't the case this time. Her trust evaporated. This was a 27-year-old woman in the back of a car, alone, with a man who was now taking her somewhere she didn't know, completely off the grid. And even still, for a few long, terrifying minutes, Emma didn't say anything. She was still trying to convince herself that maybe this was just a mistake, or maybe something was wrong. Or was it just something else that she wasn't thinking about? Finally, with as much calmness as she could muster, she finally said, "Hey, excuse me, what route did you take? I'm not supposed to be going this way." At that point, something shifted in the driver's face. His jaw got tight, his hands were gripping the steering wheel a little tighter. So what he did, instead of replying anything back, he slightly changed the navigation to make it look like he was going in the right direction this time. And it stayed like that for 45 minutes. But eventually he did correct himself, and Emma noticed that they were on the right track, so she didn't say anything. But as they got closer to their destination, this is when the driver started acting up again. He started taking weird turns and just kind of making it look like he was stalling for some reason. And Emma noticed that he was actually doing this on purpose. So she did the only thing she could think of at this point. She called a friend. And saying loud enough for the driver to hear her, she said, "Hey, I'm almost there. Just a few minutes away now. I'll see you soon." Trying to make it clear that someone was waiting on her. And should she not arrive, they would know. Whether the driver got the hint or not, because he never actually said a word, he did finally arrive at the correct destination. And as soon as Emma got out of this car, she almost felt her legs just give out from underneath her because she was so nervous and shaking, she couldn't notice it in the car. Adrenaline had kicked in and she was trying to survive at that point. She never found out what the driver's intentions really were, Maybe it was just about the money to make the ride a little longer, but then again he never pressed start on the ride. But there was no excuse for that. He never spoke, he didn't start the ride right away. He drove her miles in the wrong direction in the middle of nowhere, just empty roads and trees, before finally correcting himself and driving her to the right location for seemingly no reason, while saying nothing at all. Something about that wasn't right. It was more than trying to make more money through the app. But what really scared her more is that someone who might get into this guy's car for a different ride might not be as well versed on the roads that they get taken into. Maybe someone's from out of town and they don't understand where they're going, which means they won't bring it up, and this driver might get away with something he shouldn't. So at the end, Emma did report this driver to the rideshare app immediately, but she doesn't know whether any disciplinary action was taken against him or not. And while this wasn't the most terrifying experience in the world, it was a reminder that your trust in technology should not replace your instincts. And if something feels wrong, speak up.